I'm going to talk to you guys tonight about the war on drugs. The war on drugs was declared by Nixon first in 1971 as a response to the counterculture of the 1960s and 70s, and many veterans from the Vietnam War who were returning with addictions to heroin. The purpose of the war on drugs, as declared, is to get rid of drug markets and to prevent the spread and use of illegal drugs in the United States. The Office of National Drug Control Policy was created in the 90s, and Clinton expanded that role, and the person who heads it is now known as the drug czar. The problem with the war on drugs is it's been a complete and utter failure. Global consumption of opiates has increased 34.5%, cocaine 27%, and cannabis 8.5% from just 1998 until the present day. The Defense Department in 1986 commissioned a study from the armed forces, seeing if military action would be helpful in preventing drugs from coming into the country. The study said that it would actually help cartels have higher profit margins and that it would not be a success. This has proven to be true. Today, the US government spends $20 to $25 billion a year on the war on drugs. In 1980, the prison population in this country was around 500,000. Today, it is by 2009 rather, it was 2.3 million and climbing. There are 747 people in prison in America for every 100,000 Americans. This is a greater proportion than any other country, and it is 7 times higher than Europe. 1 in 5 of all inmates in state prisons are there because of drug offenses, and half of all federal inmates are there for drug offenses. 4 out of 5 arrests for possession are for possession of an illegal substance, and half of those are for small amounts of marijuana. Mandatory minimums and 3-strike laws put people in prison for a long time for these non-violent offenses. These policies target and greatly affect low-income Black and Hispanic youth. Stop and frisk policies in the inner city perpetuate and add to this problem. Drug laws are additionally more punitive on low-income Black and Hispanic communities because they target the sale and use of illegal drugs. Drug abusers who are white and have higher incomes are more likely to abuse prescription drugs illegally, like benzodiazepines like Xanax and opiates like Vicodin. Also, most states don't allow convicted felons to vote. So by having all these drug laws in place, even when people do get out of prison, it creates a permanent class of people who are not able to participate in the democratic process. As if this doesn't sound sinister enough, the war on drugs has led to an industry of private companies that operate prisons and that carry out military contracts for destroying drug crops in other countries. This is pretty sinister. The National Institute of Health, the American Medical Association, and the American Psychiatric Association all recognize addiction as a physical and neuropsychological disease and a mental illness. Study after study has shown that long-term treatment is far cheaper than prison time and is very effective for people addicted to drugs. One government study in 2001 found that treatment was effective for 82% of people addicted to cocaine. Some people might say that to legalize drugs would spread addiction and harm children by making drugs more available and make it seem like an option. But we have precedent for this. The 18th Amendment, which made alcohol illegal in the United States, was an abysmal failure and ushered in a dangerous era of organized crime. And an overwhelming majority of Americans say they would not start using drugs if they became illegal, although a slightly higher percentage say that they would use cannabis. Most drug arrests are for marijuana, which is not nearly as powerful, addictive, or harmful as heroin, cocaine, crack, meth, or alcohol, which is completely legal for those over 21. Ending the war on drugs doesn't necessarily mean flat out legalizing all drugs. What is needed is a smarter policy that takes into account science, medicine, education, and poverty. The resources, the huge resources, which some dude, important guy, Harvard economist Jeffrey Myron said ending the war on drugs would save the US $76.8 billion a year. That money could be put, that money could be put into education. That money could be put into effective medical treatment and more targeted law enforcement efforts. Even President Obama's former drug czar, now favors a system that combines traditional law enforcement with effective medical treatment. Sanctions, he called it. Good and smart policy addresses the problem of addiction, poverty, and organized crime. The status quo has failed to eliminate or even slow the drug market and has instead wasted money, promoted segregationist policies, and left many to die really horrible deaths. Kofi Annan, former Reagan Secretary of State George Shultz, Jimmy Carter, many, many people believe it's time to end the war on drugs. And my sources were the New York Times, the National Institute of Health, the American Medical Association, the DSM-4, Newsweek, and US News and World Report.